Joining us now from the nation's capital is Kansas Representative Ron Estes. Congressman, I really appreciate you joining us today. So last night we saw the president kind of lay out his vision for the United States, both the accomplishments over the past year and also what he looks to do moving forward. What was your response to the State of the Union address?
I thought he was wonderful in terms of going through the State of the Union. I mean, President Trump talked about all the accomplishments over the last 3 years in terms of how great the economy is going, how unemployment's low. I mean, decades-long low. In fact, sometimes as long as in recorded history. And the number of people that have jobs. And what I really like is that family income has gone up. That's something important, that long-term trend.
No, I think that's a very good point to bring up, too, because a lot of Democrats, for example, will kind of criticize Republican policies. But a lot of the economy right now is kind of favoring things that they are actually looking for. Wages are going up. The income inequality gap is actually narrowing. So a lot of things that they champion are actually being done through conservative policies. And you're someone, too, I mean, you're very much so focused on the economy. You're on the Ways and Means Committee. What is something that you'd like to see legislatively throughout now in November?
So I think a couple of things that the president talked about last night in terms of things that we need to look moving forward. One of those big ones is healthcare costs. I mean, we've got to focus on how do we reduce the burden that's being increased ever and ever so much on the average American family, whether it's through surprise billing on the costs that they have to pay for, or whether it's drug prices. And so that's one of the things that we're working on the Ways and Means, looking at how we can relieve some of that increasing burden. The other thing I'd like to see is that working on our immigration system. I mean, our whole process is broken there. And whether you're trying to immigrate legally, whether you're trying to convert from a student visa to a work visa, or whether you've come across the border illegally, the whole process is broken. And we need to do some serious work on getting that fixed and help continue the economy going forward.
And, you know, the Ways and Means Committee actually just they reevaluated a committee that advanced the marijuana sales bill with 20% tax. Is that something that you think is kind of in the future? Do you think that it's kind of becoming a more accepted type of federal means for income revenue? Or do you think that that's something that should just be kind of accustomed to the states, something that will continue being done to the states, such as been done in Colorado, for example?
Yeah, well, I think that was kind of one of those bills that's a little bit more of the political posturing than it is realistically that they expect it to come into fruition. I mean, part of there's not a sales tax per se on any other product in the country. So when you look at what was brought forth on marijuana, basically it would be a new process. But the other part is, if you compare that versus tobacco, the way they calculate it was a huge disparity in terms of how they calculate it. So I think they need to go back to the drawing board on that in terms of what they want to do moving forward.
And you bring up, too, the idea that lower drug prices is something that conservatives are actually right now kind of championing. I mean, we see that health care is going to be a big issue going into 2020, and we see that the president and his administration have been trying to lower prescription drugs through the right to try type things, to kind of allowing different competition to kind of narrow down the prices a little bit. Do you think that that's the right route to go down for conservatives going into this election year where health care will once again be a major issue?
Yeah, I think it is, because it's a pocketbook issue. I mean, it affects Americans regardless of your income level, regardless of your standard of life, or where you live throughout the country. The president's talked about it from day one. I mean, drug pricing and trade were two of the things that he really talked about a lot during the campaign. And so when we look at ever-increasing costs on some drugs that have been around a long period of time and actually have seen a lot of increase in the last recent years, we want to make sure that people are continuing to get good quality drugs. Our healthcare system's the best in the world. I don't want to make that go away. That's one of the things that Republicans are particularly concerned about, because Nancy Pelosi brought forth a partisan drug bill that was based on what she wanted. Basically, they called it negotiation, but in reality, it was mandating price controls on drugs. And that's not going to work, because that'll dampen the innovation and it'll prevent drug companies from developing new drugs that save lives, and we need to get into the marketplace. We just need to make sure that we come up with ways to help make that cost-effective for people going forward.
No, it's a very important issue, and as you said, it's one of those issues that actually affect Americans and their families. I mean, so many times we have these debates over things that really don't matter to the average American, and this is one that's not only important to those people, but important to their lives as well. So, Congressman, I really appreciate you, first of all, leading the effort on that front, and also for joining us tonight. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.